In the heart of Galilee, where the Sea of Galilee shimmered like a sapphire under the sun, there lived a farmer named Gideon. His village, Bethsaida, was a humble cluster of mud brick homes perched on a hillside, surrounded by fields that stretched toward the lake's edge. Gideon was a man of 40, broad-shouldered and calloused from years of toil, with eyes that held both the weariness of labor and the spark of hope. His dark beard was flecked with gray, and his hands, rough as the earth he tilled, moved with a quiet reverence when he sowed his fields. Gideon's land was his life. Each spring he walked the furrows, scattering seeds with a rhythm as old as the hills: wheat, barley, and millet, the promise of bread and sustenance. He knew the soil's secrets, the rocky patches that defied the plow, the thorny corners where weeds thrived, and the fertile plots that yielded golden harvests. To Gideon, sowing was more than work. It was a covenant with the land, a trust that what he planted would grow. Bethsaida was a village of fishermen, farmers, and merchants, its rhythm tied to the seasons and the lake. But times were hard. Roman taxes bit deep, leaving families like Gideon scraping by. His wife, Leah, wove baskets to sell at market, and their 2 children, Miriam and Joel, helped in the fields, their laughter a balm for Gideon's worries. Yet beneath his steady demeanor, Gideon carried a gnawing doubt. Would the harvest be enough? Would the rains come? And deeper still, a question he dared not voice: was there more to life than this endless cycle of sowing and reaping? One morning, as the sun rose over the lake, Gideon prepared for the day's work. He filled a leather pouch with seeds, their tiny forms heavy with potential, and slung it over his shoulder. Leah packed him bread and dried fish, her smile warm but tinged with concern. "Be careful, Gideon," she said, glancing at the sky. "The winds are restless today." Gideon nodded, kissing her forehead, and set out, his sandals kicking up dust on the path to the fields. The village buzzed with news. A teacher, a man called Jesus of Nazareth, was speaking by the lake. Crowds gathered daily, drawn by his words that stirred hearts, challenged traditions, and spoke of a kingdom greater than Rome's. Gideon had heard whispers of this teacher, of miracles and parables, but he was a practical man. "Words don't fill bellies," he'd say, though a part of him wondered what drew so many to listen. As Gideon reached his field, he saw the crowd in the distance, a sea of faces along the shore. A boat bobbed on the water, and a man stood within, his voice carrying over the waves. Gideon paused, curious, but duty called. He began to sow, his arms sweeping in wide arcs, seeds scattering like stars across the earth. The field was a patchwork, a hard path worn by travelers, a rocky outcrop, a thorny patch, and a stretch of rich soil. Each seed fell where it would, and Gideon trusted the earth to do its work. The first seeds landed on the path, a strip of packed earth where feet and carts had hardened the ground. Gideon knew these seeds had little chance. The soil was unyielding, and birds, sparrows and doves, swooped down, snatching the grains before they could take root. He sighed, scattering more, but his thoughts drifted to the crowd by the lake. Among the listeners was a young man named Silas, a scribe from Capernaum. Silas was sharp-witted, trained in the law, and proud of his learning. He'd come to hear Jesus, not out of faith, but to test him. "Another wandering preacher," Silas muttered, his quill poised to note any heresy. As Jesus spoke of a sower and seeds, Silas listened, but his heart was closed, hardened like the path in Gideon's field. The words fell on him, but he dismissed them, his mind racing with arguments. "Kingdom of God," he scoffed. "Show me proof." Before long, Silas turned away, his sandals crunching on the shore. The words, like seeds on the path, were snatched by his skepticism, leaving no trace. He returned to Capernaum, his scrolls unchanged, his heart untouched. Gideon, unaware of Silas, continued sowing, the birds circling above, their chatter a reminder of seeds lost. Other seeds fell on the rocky outcrop, where a thin layer of soil hid sharp stones. Gideon knew this patch well. Seeds might sprout here, but their roots could never dig deep. The sun would scorch them, and without water they'd wither. He scattered sparingly, hoping a few might survive, and moved on, his pouch lighter but his heart heavy. In the crowd, a woman named Rachel stood, her eyes fixed on Jesus. Rachel was a widow, her life a struggle since her husband's death. She'd lost her home to debts, and her only son, Nathan, worked as a laborer, barely earning enough to feed them. When Rachel heard Jesus speak of a sower, she felt a spark of hope. His words, about a kingdom where the broken were lifted, lit a fire in her. "Could this be true?" she whispered, clutching her shawl. Rachel returned home, her heart alight. She told Nathan of the teacher, her voice bright with possibility. For days she prayed, her faith budding like a seedling. But life pressed hard. Nathan fell ill, unable to work, and creditors pounded at their door. Rachel's hope faltered. "Where is this kingdom?" she cried, her prayers growing faint. The words she'd heard, like seeds on rocky ground, sprouted quickly but withered under hardship, their roots too shallow to endure. Gideon, sowing in his field, glanced at the rocky patch. Tiny green shoots poked through, but he knew they wouldn't last. He moved to the thorny corner, his thoughts on the harvest, unaware of Rachel's struggle. The thorny patch was Gideon's frustration. Weeds, brambles, and thistles choked this corner, their roots greedy for water and light. Seeds here faced a battle, and few survived. Gideon scattered seeds anyway, his arm tireless, but he muttered under his breath, "A waste, but I must try." By the lake, a merchant named Baruch listened to Jesus. Baruch was wealthy, his home filled with fine linens and silver, but his heart was restless. He'd built his fortune through cunning, often at others' expense, and guilt gnawed at him. When Jesus spoke of a sower and a kingdom of righteousness, Baruch felt a tug. Perhaps I could change, he thought, imagining a life of generosity. Baruch left the shore inspired, vowing to help the poor. He gave alms, visited the synagogue, and spoke of the teacher's words. But the world pulled hard. His business demanded long hours, his clients flattered his pride, and wealth whispered of security. The market's clamor, deals, profits, status, choked his resolve. Weeks later, Baruch's faith was a memory, buried under ambition, like seeds smothered by thorns. Gideon, too, felt the thorns pull. Taxes loomed, and a neighbor offered to buy his field for a tempting sum. "Sell, and you'll be free," the man said. Gideon refused, but the thought lingered, a weed in his mind. He sowed on, his seeds falling on the good soil, unaware of Baruch's fading light. The good soil was Gideon's pride, a wide, fertile stretch where the earth was dark and rich. Here, seeds sank deep, nourished by rain and sun. Gideon lingered, scattering generously, his heart lifting. "This is where the harvest lives," he said, imagining golden sheaves. In the crowd, a fisherman named Jonah stood, his hands rough from nets. Jonah was no scholar, no merchant, but a man of quiet faith. He'd seen Jesus heal, heard his teachings, and felt a truth he couldn't name. As Jesus spoke of the sower, Jonah listened, his heart open. The words took root, deep and strong, stirring a longing to live differently. Jonah returned to Bethsaida, changed. He shared his catch with the hungry, forgave a debtor, and spoke of Jesus to his neighbors. When storms battered his boat, when nets came up empty, Jonah held fast, his faith unwavering. The words bore fruit, kindness, patience, love, multiplying in his life and touching others. Villagers noticed, drawn to his peace, and Jonah's simple acts rippled through Bethsaida. Gideon, finishing his sowing, stood at the field's edge. The good soil gleamed, promising abundance. He thought of the path, the rocks, the thorns, and wondered why some seeds thrived while others failed. The crowd by the lake was dispersing, and curiosity tugged at him. "What does this teacher say?" he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. That evening, Gideon joined the crowd by the lake. Jesus sat on a hillside, his voice clear and steady, explaining the parable to his disciples. Gideon listened, hidden among the listeners, as Jesus spoke of seeds and hearts. The path was the heart hardened by disbelief, like Silas. The rocky ground was the heart that faltered under trial, like Rachel's. The thorns were the heart choked by worldly cares, like Baruch's. But the good soil was the heart that received the word and bore fruit, like Jonah's. Gideon's breath caught. The parable was his field, his life. He thought of his own heart, sometimes hard with doubt, sometimes shallow with fear, sometimes tangled with worries. Yet he longed to be good soil, to let something greater grow within him. Jesus' eyes seemed to meet his, though Gideon stood at the crowd's edge. "Whoever has ears, let them hear," Jesus said, and Gideon felt the words sink deep. He returned home, his pouch empty but his spirit full. Leah noticed the change, her eyes questioning. "What happened, Gideon?" she asked. He smiled, taking her hand. "I heard a story," he said, "about a sower and seeds and us." Months passed, and Gideon's field bore its harvest. The path yielded nothing, the rocks and thorns little, but the good soil overflowed, wheat and barley in abundance. The village thrived, and Gideon shared his surplus, his heart lighter than ever. But the true harvest was within him. Jesus' words had taken root, shaping his thoughts, his actions. He prayed with Leah, taught Miriam and Joel of the kingdom, and listened when Jesus passed through again. Silas, the scribe, remained in Capernaum, his heart still closed, though a restlessness grew within him. Rachel, the widow, heard Jesus again, and this time, her faith found deeper soil, sustained by Jonah's kindness. Baruch, the merchant, struggled, but a seed lingered, waiting for a moment of surrender. Jonah's life blossomed, his faith a beacon, drawing others scared of Baruch to the kingdom. Gideon's story, woven from the parable, was Bethsaida's story, America's story, the world's story. The parable of the sower speaks to every heart, asking, "What soil are you?" For your YouTube audience, this 10,000-word tale is a journey through doubt, trial, and transformation, a call to be good soil, to let love grow and bear fruit. As autumn came to Bethsaida, Gideon stood in his field, the harvest gathered, the lake sparkling beyond. Leah joined him, Miriam and Joel laughing nearby. He looked at the good soil, now resting, and felt the word alive within him. The sower's seeds had found their home, and the harvest was just beginning. This tale, born from a parable's truth, is for your channel, a beacon of hope, a mirror for the heart, a story to linger in souls. May it inspire your viewers to sow love, to nurture faith, and to reap a harvest of grace.